Happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Today is episode 281 of The Daily Dope, and it is also Thursday, April 11th. So it's a Thursday, that means RPGs. So I am going to be reviewing John Carter of Mars. Yes, the special slipcase edition of the role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. This includes the core rulebook as well as the Phantom of Mars campaign book. So we will be taking a look at both. I will be reviewing both as well. I see Dan from No Enemies here has been hanging out for a few minutes before the show started. Kabuki Kid is popping in. Today was a little weird. Started about 5 minutes late. Everything was all set, all good to go. I always double check, make sure the sound is in sync. So I record a little bit. Everything was fine. And then I'll do my setup and things like that. And then I record something again just for about 10, 15 seconds just to make sure that that sync is still going on. And it was out of sync. And I was like, I know why, because while I was doing everything, my video driver actually did an update. So I bet you that's what happened. I bet you that update threw the syncing off. So I had to kind of tweak it a little bit. So that's why I'm about 5 minutes late. So, hey, yes, Flaming Huron's here. It says, I thought something was wrong because I'm here before you, as in Flaming Huron was here waiting for the show to start. Usually many of the folks who follow the Gaming Gang as well as watch the Daily Dope and take part in the live chat show up about 5-10 minutes after the show starts. So yes, so amazingly enough, I guess some people were hanging out before I got going tonight. So I got a little bit of news tonight, not a ton, so we're gonna get into that. I got some packages today, so that's cool. So I have kind of changed the order of things that we're going to be taking a look at over the next few shows. I will be talking about that in a little bit as well. But before I do, I wanted to mention, now, I know quite a few folks who are watching now were watching live yesterday, which was Wednesday, Wargame Wednesday. I took a look at the deluxe edition of The Dark Valley from GMT Games. I specifically did not mention, oh, I know some people don't like the tabletop gaming news, so if you don't care for it, look in the show notes below and you can skip past, which I usually will do if there's a news segment on the show, because I know these people get all butthurt, because, I don't know, I have no idea. So, as a test, I did not do that yesterday, and I know how a lot of these wargamers are. Sure enough, first comment I get today, some jackass, what is it? What was it? Something like RT Lee or something, or BT Lee, which once again, it's somebody who has absolutely no YouTube presence. They don't have any kind of web presence whatsoever. It's some jackass, some probably 70-year-old wargamer who's barely able to figure out how the interwebs work. But they said, oh, just a bunch of crap and nonsense before the unboxing and review. Okay, so, excuse my French here, gang, but, what are you, a fucking idiot? How can I unbox something and review it right then and there? And it's a game. These are the kind of morons that, that's one of the reasons why I always talk about how the wargaming community needs fresh blood, because there are some people out there who are grognards who are just complete dipshits. Sorry, that is the truth. And I knew for a fact I was going to get somebody commenting about, because usually it's something along the lines of, oh, there's a bunch of commercials before the thing that you're doing. They don't understand the concept. This is a live stream. People are watching this live. There's a give and take. There's a little bit of chat going on. I don't know. It's kind of funny. I had to laugh because I knew this was going to happen. But the best is, oh, there's a bunch of crap and nonsense before the unboxing and review. Problem is, that's how a lot of people covering the hobby right now are treating game publishers. I know Mark H. Walker, my pal over at Flying Pig Games and Tiny Battle Publishing, has talked about how there are a lot of reviewers now out there that they just do an unboxing and they call that a review. So now they're starting to put that into people's heads. Oh, I just watched something. Somebody takes stuff out of a box. That's the review. Just like I watched something. It was for an RPG that I was kind of curious about, and it was the same kind of thing. But it was like 10 minutes long, and it was this guy blasting like classical music, which I have a little ambient music myself, but not super loud. And all they were doing was rehashing the information about the role-playing game and sharing like images, and that was their review. And I was like, all you're doing is reading the sell sheet info. How is that a review? So, I don't know. Yeah, Fleming Huron says, would they rather you just open the box, say nothing else? It's not the opening the box thing. I don't know. It's the problem some people have is that I present some of the latest gaming news before jumping in to what I'm doing. Be it a review, unboxing, what have you. That's where the issue lies with some of these people. And I just don't get it. It's like, if you're too stupid to take a look at the show notes that tell you exactly where to jump to avoid all this stuff, I can't help you. There's no cure for stupid like that. So anyway, all right, so I've got a little bit of news today, not a ton of news, but one thing that's pretty cool that did pop up that I have learned about is that Victory Point Games is going to actually do a Kickstarter. I don't have the date yet, it's coming soon, but a Kickstarter for a new edition of Cruel Necessity, and I've got the dope. Victory Point Game Studio has been busy preparing its new edition of the much-praised Cruel Necessity game by designer John Welsh. Following its recent project approval by Tabletop Tycoon, we have put the band back together with familiar names, no, not Oliver Cromwell and the Ironsides, for redevelopment, art, and layout. In addition to adding some new faces and enlarging the possibility space for this classic States of Siege trademark solitaire game. They're the ones who throw the trademark in. I always ignore those when I post news pieces. Cruel Necessity covers each and all of England's 3 civil wars from 1640 to 1653. Can you, as Parliament, use your godly rule to smite the royalist forces of oppression and despair? We will soon bring ye tidings for Cruel Necessity 2nd edition as a new Kickstarter endeavor. For that, our town crier bids thee bring your basket to the executioner's block to catch a copy when announced to get ahead of your friends. This solitaire game, suitable for group and classroom cooperative gameplay, tells the story of the English Civil Wars through its key events and decision points. You attempt to stop the advance of 4 armies bent on destroying Parliament and Puritanism, whom you represent. Simply holding on to London is not enough. Each of the 3 English Civil Wars are replayed through the use of separate card decks that recreate the historical military and political events that could spell doom to the parliamentarian forces. There are civil wars going on not just in England, but in Scotland and Ireland too, and each will have their varying impact on the play of the game at different times. The title comes from the purported response to the beheading of King Charles by his implacable foe, Oliver Cromwell, who remarked that this act of regicide was a cruel necessity. As I previously mentioned, Cruel Necessity is a solitaire game. It's for ages 13 and up. Plays in around 90 to 120 minutes. I think it's Board Game Geek that says it plays in an hour. It absolutely does not play in an hour. And as soon as I find out when this is heading to Kickstarter, I will let you know, because I am a huge fan of Cruel Necessity. In fact, where we got it hiding? Where are you hiding at? Come on, you. Oh, over here. You can't see it. You can't see it. Let's see, can I sneak it on out here without losing everything? There we go. For a second, I'm looking like it's something to fall. Because I'm telling you, folks, in the Duct Tape Studios, there is just things are strewn all over the place. It's no joke. It really is the Duct Tape Studios. But Cruel Necessity, I am a big fan. Love the game. Gave it a great review when it first came out. This is going to be getting, from what I understand, we will be seeing, it getting the top-notch production. Kind of along the lines, if you ever played Nemo's War. Of course, when it first came out, it was a Ziploc bag game. It was a poly bag game. But if you compare it to the second edition, night and day. So I've heard that is on the horizon. It's pretty cool. It is from a good friend of mine who's the designer, John Welsh. And they will actually fix the misprint that's on the game board. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. There's a misprint right on the game board that's like huge. It's like huge font. It's right there, and you're like, oh, wait a second. What's going on here? So I'm excited for that. I'm very excited for that. And now that Victory Point Games is kind of under that umbrella, it's Tabletop Tycoon, but I think it's kind of like Game Salute, sort of. It's all kind of all together in one now. We're gonna see fewer releases from Victory Point Games, but we are gonna see like much higher quality releases. All right, so moving right along to my next piece of news. There is a new Star Trek adventure from Modiphius. It's available in PDF right now, and I've got the dope on Nest in the Dark. Nest in the Dark by Aaron M. Paulier, I'm guessing on that, is available in PDF only from Modiphius.net and DriveThruRPG as part of our Star Trek collection, where you can find more great books, dice, minis, and accessories. Here are the details on this intriguing new adventure. Make first contact with an alien computer system. When your starship's warp drive fails, you encounter a strange subspace field generated by an alien construct. A Matryoshka brain? And I don't know how that's pronounced. A networked computer system large enough to completely surround a star. As you attempt to make contact with the entities living within the brain, you discover that the alien construct is on a course toward the Federation colony in the Foggy Peak system, kind of an oddball name, and that the vessel's massive subspace field will destroy the colony and the system as it passes by. Can you learn how to communicate with the inhabitants of the alien brain and convince them of their need to change course before the Federation colony is destroyed? This standalone 19-page PDF adventure by Aaron M. Paulier is for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game and is set during the Next Generation era. This adventure also contains advice for adaptation for use in campaigns based in other Trek eras. We hope you enjoy this latest Star Trek adventure. It joins other recent releases like Trouble on Omnid 3 and The Gravity of the Crime. Look for the brand new adventure coming next week, Marco Raffaella's A Forest Apart. Nest in the Dark is available at DriveThruRPG for $4.99. Pretty cool. One thing I have to point out, and I know I am reviewing a Modiphius product tonight, but one thing I have to point out is most of the games that are their core Modiphius Entertainment releases, they get a good amount of support. We see quite a lot of different adventures that come out for like Star Trek adventures, those source books and things like that. And there is that sort of kind of collection that you can purchase if you're getting the PDFs, where it's like a one price. They do it for Conan as well. Conan Adventures in an Age Undreamed of. They do that as well, and it's about, I think it's like $110, something like that. But then it's like everything that comes out. So I think that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty sweet. I like Star Trek Adventures. I think it's a pretty cool system. The 2D20 system's a little odd. I'm going to talk about that actually a little bit in the review that's coming up for John Carter of Mars. All right, my final news piece is about a new supplement that's coming out for Delta Green. Yes, it's coming from Arc Dream Publishing, and I've got the dope on Delta Green, the Complex. Cosmic terror infects the U.S. government and the companies that profit from it. Delta Green, the Complex, offers 19 new dossiers for federal agencies and important contractors to enhance your Delta Green campaign. Halliburton, anybody? No, that's just me saying that. Each dossier describes the entity's budget, operatives, organizational structure and history, mandate, areas of friction with other agencies, suggested professions for Delta Green agents, and what it's like to work there. The Complex gives deep and playable details for the ATF. There you go. I want to work for the ATF. Woohoo. Booze Alan Hamilton. I am not familiar with what that is. The Coast Guard Consolidated Analyst Center. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Consolidated Analysis Center. Constellus Group, Customs and Border Protection. DARPA. That's interesting. The Defense Intelligence Agency, FEMA, Lockheed Martin, NASA, the National Nuclear Security Administration, the National Counterterrorism Center, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, the NSA, the Office of Naval Intelligence, the RAND Corporation, and the Secret Service. The Complex is playable with Delta Green, the role-playing game, an award-winning update to one of the most acclaimed RPG series of all time. Delta Green, the Complex will be arriving in your friendly local gaming stores soon. And the physical supplement will carry an MSRP of $24.99, while the PDF will be available. It's not out yet. I've got a copy of it, but it's not out yet. It will be available, I believe, at Drive-Thru RPG for $12.99. So sweet. Very nice. Speaking of Delta Green, so Arc Dream Publishing, Rachel Ivey over at Arc Dream really liked the WrestleNomicon coverage that I did. So she asked if I'd be interested in checking out a bunch of their Delta Green stuff. And as somebody who has run Call of Cthulhu for decades, I am familiar with the original Delta Green that came out. I am not familiar with the new revamped kind of, because if I remember correctly, now maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, but if I remember correctly, the original Delta Green was more just a like Cthulhu Now source book about this military organization that, you know, fought mythos horrors and things like that, whereas new Delta Green is sort of like really conspiratorial, and I think Delta Green is kind of like almost like the X-Files kind of been wiped out sort of thing. So I think, now I know there's a Pelgrane Press book, which is from Ken Hite. And Ken does great Lovecraft stuff. And it's the fall of Delta Green. And that is a Delta Green supplement, but it's from Pelgrane Press. So kind of odd, right? But that's kind of like the fall of Delta Green. It's more like Vietnam era. So, all right. So that's it for the news today. Before I jump into my review of John Carter of Mars, let me point out that I'm just going to remind you that the Daily Dope, as well as thegaminggang.com, are not for profit. So if you happen to like the Daily Dope and thegaminggang.com, please consider making a small donation to Lil Bub's Big Fund and the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Lil Bub's Big Fund does provide grant monies to different organizations around the United States who care for special needs pets. who are awaiting adoption. Yes, that's right. So these pets may have some special needs. Maybe they require medications. Maybe they're older, long in the tooth like me. Maybe they're blind or deaf or have mobility issues. Regardless, these animals still deserve to find forever homes and to be loved. So, because I am a big proponent of taking care of animals, although I am not a PETA member by any stretch of the imagination, because I like animals as pets. Thank you very much. But I do think it's important that we do care for animals who are, not as fortunate as the ones sharing time in our houses. Hopefully, maybe we can get them homes somewhere else. All right, so anyway, I do want to also point out that if you do make a donation to Lil Bub's Big Fund, just shoot me a quick email. You don't need to send me proof or anything like that. Just shoot me an email, let me know, and I will give you a shout out on the following show. All right, so what's coming up on future episodes of The Daily Dope? I don't know, nothing. Nothing at all. Not going to do anything. See, this is like Flaming Huron said. I should just do something and just shut up, not do anything. Just like, I should have crickets. I should play a little thing with crickets in the background, and I'll just be like, no. Anyway, so on tomorrow's show, hey, it did arrive. It did arrive. So tomorrow, we're going to take a first look. We're going to unbox the Starfinder Beginner Box from Paizo Inc. Okay, so it's not a huge box, right? It's about the size of like a rule book, right? Standard rule book. I gotta tell you, this has got some serious heft. This is, it's got goodies in it. I haven't looked at the box. Okay, so here's a confession, right? So when I do an unboxing on something, very rarely do I even actually look at the back of the box before I do the unboxing. So most of the time, I'm actually reading the sell sheet info that's on the back of the box for the first time when I'm running live. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't encountered something online and I know a little something about it, but I'll be the first one to admit, I'm absolutely clueless as far as the beginner box. I'm assuming there's dice. I'm assuming there's like a quick start rule book, an adventure, probably some pawns or tokens. Do they call them pawns or tokens? Kind of, standees, or maybe like the little pot. What do they call them? Like, what did they used to call those things where kids would flip them? Were they pogs? I don't know. Which, to me, a lot of these tokens these days kind of remind me of those. Those like little flipping things that kids had. I swear, I think they were called pogs. Do not know. But we're going to be looking at this on tomorrow's show. So I'm excited. I'm excited because Aaron over at Paizo Inc. did confirm with me that I'm going to see like the whole first wave of Pathfinder releases. So I know it's going to come out at Gen Con. I don't know if reviewers are going to have it ahead of time and probably have some sort of an embargo on the information, or if it's going to like arrive on the day that it goes on sale. Now, I'll be at Gen Con, fingers crossed, knock on wood, but so I might just arrange to pick it up there, unless they are sending it out ahead of time. Then, of course, I'd prefer to actually have some coverage that I've done at a time. Anyway, so also arriving today was Tiny Towns from Alderac Entertainment Group. So I'm going to take a look at this on Monday. We're going to do an unboxing of this on Monday. So what that means is over the weekend, I am going to shoot a standalone video with my review of Dark War Rebooted from Tiny Battle Publishing, written by Mark H. Walker. It was his first foray into role-playing games. And probably Sunday night, I'm going to do a standalone for The Cursed Earth, Judge Dredd from Osprey Games, because otherwise everything else is going to just start really stacking up. And I know a lot of people want to see what's in this Pathfinder beginner box, and a lot of people are really excited to see Tiny Towns. So I kind of prefer to try to get stuff out there that people are pumped to check out, because of course if you do follow the Gaming Gang channel, you know it's like really super hit or miss. What I might pull viewers in on. I might get 1,000, 1,500. I think the most views I have are like 15,000 on my Panzer review from GMT. So GMT videos usually bring in quite a few people. My Forbidden Realms, no, I'm sorry, Forbidden Lands has been pulling in a lot of viewers too. And then I might do something for, like, an example, Kanban, which I will be reviewing next Wednesday, not Wednesday, next Tuesday, sorry. And I might get 50 views. And I don't know if it's because a lot of folks have already covered it from Stronghold Games and I'm a little late to the party sometimes, or what. I don't know. I have no idea. Then on Wednesday, it'll be Wargame Wednesday again. So I am going to review, I got to back up on this, the Ghost Front Belgium 1944 expansion to Old School Tactical Volume 2. Pretty sweet, pretty nice. And then Thursday, I'm kind of up in the air because we might actually have some more stuff popping up. I might actually maybe even do like a kind of a page through for Cyberpunk 2.0 points. So, Kabuki Kid says, OST, Old School Tactical, baby. That's right. All right, so I'm sure folks are going to be checking this video out because of John Carter of Mars, the role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. I'm going to be reviewing the collector's slipcase, which is available for $98.99. You can grab the core book alone if you want the hardcover core book. It's $54.99 or $19.99 in PDF. The campaign book, which is about 120, I want to say, we'll take a look when I pull the books out of the slipcase. If I remember right, the core book is 282 pages, and the campaign book, Phantoms of Mars, is 124 pages. That hardcover is $32.99, or you can get it in PDF for $16.99. And as I always like to remind folks, if you are going to go to Drive-Thru RPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com. Click on one of our banners. I am going to put a Wargame Vault banner on the site as well, because I know some people like to go to Wargame Vault and pick up some of the print-on-demand stuff, especially from like Tiny Battle Publishing. But anyway, if you are going to go to Drive-Thru RPG, please go to thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners. That way, if you make a purchase, I get a little piece of that, a little tiny piece of that. But I always point out, it all adds up, and most months it actually pays for our like $70 hosting for the Gaming Gang. So it's amazing how those nickels and dimes really, really add up. No joke. It's not like I get dollars and dollars. It's nickels and dimes, sometimes quarters. All right, so let's move on over to the other camera here. So Kabuki Kid says, love the art. I assume Kabuki Kid's talking about loving the art for John Carter of Mars. So let's pop these on out. So I did an unboxing. Well, I guess we won't say an unboxing. We did a first look page through. I guess I'll say that. A first look page through not too long ago. Okay, so here's something really, really odd. So on the 28th of I think it's showed the 28th. Okay, so strangely enough, Google is showing that I have a YouTube review of John Carter of Mars. I did not. I do not have a review of John Carter of Mars. So this is what happened. I had it scheduled to be reviewed, and then I did the unboxing for Cursed Earth, I want to say. And the way that YouTube Studio is working now, it's all effed up. It really, really is. And what it'll do is, because normally what I'll do with my videos is I will actually sit there and make sure that that day's live stream that information is there. So it'll say, oh, hey, like tonight it says John Carter of Mars RPG review on the Gaming Gang, or not the Gaming Gang, the Daily Dope episode 281. Well, episode 278, according to Google, is showing that it's this review, which I didn't end up doing. But I took that all down off the live stream. That's what pisses me off, is that this new studio thing that YouTube is kind of like cramming down everybody's throat is a bunch of crap. It's garbage. It takes forever to load up. It's very unintuitive. And like I said, I did not end up doing the review for John Carter that night. I ended up doing the unboxing for the Cursed Earth. And when you go to the channel, and if you even click on the link from Google, it's the Cursed Earth. It's Judge Dredd. It's weird. It's bizarre. So Kabuki Kid says, I got my updated upfront cards from Wargame Vault and expansions. Yes, after that fiasco with Kickstarter, which we will not get into, but which I took a lot of flack for years ago, because I said people would never see their copies of upfront. And this was, it was up on Kickstarter, because I knew these guys didn't have, what was it, Valley Games or something like that. They didn't have the copyright to the game. It didn't matter that the designer was on board. They didn't own the copyright to it. It belonged to Hasbro, and Hasbro wasn't going to let it go. So it's like, people were like, who the fuck is this guy saying we're not going to get our game? Blah, 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 blah. Yep, told you so. And then the guy like scams out and goes to Australia, moves to Australia. That and what was it? Airborne in My Pocket. Between the two of those games, I think he had raised almost $1 million, and nobody got anything. Okay, so starting off, we've got a glossary. Get a little bit of background about the John Carter stories from Edgar Rice Burroughs. If you are not familiar with John Carter is not actually like the main character in the majority of the Barsoom novels. He's the main character in the first 3. I think he's kind of a secondary in, what is it? Is it the 5th? And then I think like the 10th and the 11th, he's back to being like the main character. But John Carter is actually an immortal. So interesting enough. So you've got 3 different eras of play that you can set your campaigns in. I have to admit, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get the kind of the same sort of treatment for the John Carter novels as we got for Conan in Conan Adventures in an Age Undreamed Of. I really liked the just kind of like the background they were sharing. It was I don't know, maybe about 10 pages. Here it's just kind of, just like half a page. As you can see, the books are presented in a landscape as opposed to what we're normally used to seeing. They are in a landscape print. I gotta point out, I don't mind it. It's okay. It's okay with me. Problem some people might have is if you're getting a PDF. I would assume that you have to read the PDF with on your tablet, for an example, sideways. And I would think that most of your different apps that you utilize to read PDFs do not have that kind of way for you to just gotta swipe your finger. So I don't know. I would think it might be a little odd as far as in PDF. I don't know. I have not seen the PDFs. Actually, I have to point out, Chris Birch did send me the PDF to the core rulebook, which I have not looked at, so I have not looked at it. But I do want to point out that for those of you who are watching live, I am giving that away. So at the end of my review, I am going to give away a copy of John Carter of Mars, the core rulebook in PDF, which is normally like $20, I am going to give a copy away. So stay tuned. Anyway, so we're going to kind of page through this fairly quickly. So we've got starting attributes. So you got to realize that in the 2D20 system, things are a little bit different. So we still have 6 core attributes. So we've got daring, empathy, might, passion, reason, and cunning. But you really have from 1 to 12 is really what you've got as far as. So it's not 3 to 18 like a lot of people can normally think of. Average is like 4. Legendaries like 11 or 12. With the 2D20 system itself, you're rolling 2 20-sided dice, and you have a target number that you're trying to roll lower than. And 2D20, if you roll a 20 is bad, you know. And in D&D like 5e, you roll a 20, it's like, yay, hooray, it's a critical hit. But in 2D20, that is not the case. So you're actually rolling 2 dice and trying to come under your attributes is usually what you'll have something based on. So you might actually be rolling against 2 different things with your 2D20s. Kind of reminds me a little bit, just a little bit of the Dark Eye. The Dark Eye, where you're basically rolling 3 20-sided dice. But it's not as complex. So then we got the different archetypes. So that we're in the midst of the character creation here. I like the fact that they gave you quite a few different archetypes. You've got a descriptor. The descriptors are kind of cool too, because then they give you a boost to 2 of your attributes. So you got that. Renown is important. There's equipping your character. Then it talks about the different types of characters. So you've got red Martians, you got green Martians. Of course, you could be an Earth man or a woman. Don't get me wrong. As far as the artwork in the book is some of it's really good, some of it's all right. I wouldn't say terrible, but for an example here, I mean, that's not knocking me out. I mean, it's all right, it's okay, but I don't know, a little cartoonish in my opinion there. Okay, so if you don't want to go through all the trouble of rolling up a character, creating a character, which isn't really difficult to do, there are some pre-gens you can utilize as well, like the Thoughtful Green Martian Guide. Then we got your talents. One thing I do want to point out, the talents are kind of spread all over the place throughout the book. Got to give that a little bit of a knock. They're not all located in one area here. Also, got to mention, though, that I think it's kind of cool that the authors are pretty much like, well, you want to create talents? Go ahead. Create talents. Then we got Adventuring in Barsoom. You got your dice and die rolls. Now, one thing that the 2D20 system uses as well are 6-sided dice, but the 6-sided dice are you're supposed to purchase special dice from Modiphius Entertainment. They did this with Star Trek. They did this with Conan, and of course for John Carter as well. So you got these special dice, but you got a chart too that'll tell you, okay, so this is what these dice actually represent. So it's not a big deal. I gotta be honest. I mean, sometimes when companies toss out these, you gotta buy special dice. Like one of the things with Dungeon Crawl Classics. I like Dungeon Crawl Classics. I think it's pretty bizarre. I think it's pretty gonzo. I don't know if I would necessarily run Dungeon Crawl Classics the way it's written. But they've got all these, like, crazy-ass dice. And it's like, okay, do I really need a D17 just for, like, a particular thing? So there's, like, 5 different dice that you don't use in any other games. Although I think they use a 30-sider, and people do use 30-siders sometimes. And so I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of like just going out of your way to make sure that people have to buy your dice. Same thing with Fantasy Flight Games. I'm not a keen believer in having to go purchase their special dice that they've got for their Genesis games, like Star Wars. Right, so it goes through talking about adventuring on Mars. One thing about this edition of the 2D20 rules is they're less complex. They are less complex in John Carter of Mars than they have been for Conan and for Star Trek Adventures. So I personally think that the actual 2D20 system is easier to get into in John Carter of Mars than it is for, say, like Conan or Star Trek Adventures. Now, I want to point out, as I mentioned a lot of times when I'm doing RPG reviews, is I really don't care that much about mechanics of a game. So for an example, like you've got momentum. Momentum is kind of a big deal in the 2D20 system. It's almost like a form of kind of currency for the players. And it does exist in John Carter of Mars. It just doesn't seem as important. Just like, for an example, like combat. And like a lot of people are used to having rounds, action rounds and things like that. Whereas, it's a very specific amount of time. Maybe it's a minute. Maybe could be 6 seconds. Here in John Carter of Mars, it's kind of more fluid, I guess I would say, as far as the timing of the rounds themselves. It's more along the lines of, well, it's the amount of time it took for something to take place, as opposed to, oh, it's exactly 10 seconds or a minute or what have you. I do want to point out, it's kind of interesting we're on technology here. And I read most of the John Carter books when I was younger, way younger. I think I was like 12. So I don't recall a lot. So, I mean, I recall some things, but there's other things where I'm like, was that John Carter of Mars or was that something else? I'm not positive. But I kind of get a kick out of how the technology on Mars is, some stuff is like really, really advanced. Because the first book actually takes place around Earth time, around 1868 or something like that. But it's kind of funny because like some of the technology is like really far advanced, and some of the technology is really kind of ass backwards too. So a lot of conflict, a lot of social castes as far as the different cultures. For an example, like the Red Martians and the Green Martians. And it's weird because the Red Martians are almost kind of like a stand-in for Native Americans. At the, kind of little wonky as far as that goes. And that's according to Edgar Rice Burroughs. But because you had to realize the first John Carter story, which was serialized, came out in like 1912. So, and then the final book, which I really do believe, I think is John Carter of Mars, came out after Edgar Rice Burroughs had passed away. It came out, I want to say, in 1964. So we get a good amount of detail about the different cultures, the different factions that are on Mars. One thing I've always found interesting is it always seems like Mars is a dying planet. It's always a dying planet. It's a dying planet in John Carter. It's a dying planet in War of the Worlds, right? That's why they're coming here. The Martians are coming here. It's a dying planet, or really a dead planet, in the Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. Have there ever been like stories? Okay, outside of like Spider Robinson, there have been stories where Mars is actually a thriving, flourishing culture. I don't know. I have no idea. One other thing that's kind of cool about the game itself is it really does try to kind of set the scene, set the scene for Edgar Rice Burroughs kind of stories, kind of action, kind of adventurous but romantic as well. There is romance within the game, both in the traditional term as well as just kind of like romantic language. We get into Beyond Barsoom, just a little bit of info about the other planets. Then we move into the Game Master's section here. Game Master is known as the narrator in this book. It's talking about your campaign focus. This is one thing that I thought was kind of cool, where it's talking about how, well, what are you looking to achieve in this campaign? What kind of stories are you looking to tell? Because some people might just want to be playing just action-packed, nonstop, I don't want to say pulp action, but, two-fisted swords and science kind of adventure, which is also another kind of oddball thing where there's so many melee weapons and swords used. But there's a kind of the premise on Mars is it's not socially acceptable to attack anybody with like something more powerful than what they attacked you with. That's why you see a lot of swords and pole arms and things like that. All right, so this is just talking about different books, different ideas for you to be able to. All right, Pinky's down here making noise again. Various ideas to kind of draw inspiration from. Then we get into a bit of a bestiary. It's not huge, not a very huge bestiary here. But this art's pretty cool. I like this art here. With the calotte. So, very, very short. So you're not sitting there. It's not like Pathfinder or D&D where you're reading like 4 or 5 pages of information about monsters and creatures. The Martian spiders. All right, so just kind of zipping on through. Some more artwork here. The white ape. I always thought the white apes were really super cool. And then we got Secrets of Barsoom. So this delves a little bit deeper in for the narrator, the game master. Then we're going to have an adventure. And it's pretty... Well, I want to say it's not necessarily... Okay, well, hang on. I'm jumping ahead. So we've got the Champions of Barsoom, which is essentially giving us the information about the various different characters from the novels. I always thought it was kind of interesting that Edgar Rice Burroughs was not able to actually sell John Carter of Mars, as far as like I said, it was serialized until Tarzan actually became popular. So it's kind of funny how Edgar Rice Burroughs had Tarzan and John Carter of Mars come out not too far apart. Okay, so we're showing the heroes of the various different eras as well. And John Carter can show up in any of the eras because, as I mentioned before, he's immortal. Then there's some characters from the backers. And there we go. Mine Merchants of Mars is the adventure. I want to point out that it's more a nugget, or well, I don't. Okay, I wouldn't say a nugget. It's more of a bite-sized chunk in my personal opinion than actually a full-fledged adventure, but it is actually pretty good. So it does give the players an idea of how this game world is presented, how the game works as well. So I've seen worse. I'll be the first one to point that out. I've seen worse where you didn't get an adventure. I've seen some core books, a lot of core books that didn't give you an adventure at all. Some didn't even give you a bestiary with monsters. So not bad at all. And then we get a bunch of story nuggets here at the end. The character sheet. Personally, I think these are a little bit busy. I don't know if I'd actually necessarily want to utilize these character sheets. You can download the character sheets from Modiphius Entertainment. I would prefer to see these in black and white as opposed to color. And I'm not talking grayscale either. I mean just black and white. Get rid of some of the artwork and stuff like that. Because once again, be pretty busy. And then, of course, finish up with the Kickstarter backers and an index. So, and then same map of Barsoom as we saw on the opening pages. So that is the core book. Let's take a look. This is much shorter. This book is much shorter here. This is Phantoms of Mars. This is the campaign guide. So in this situation there, we're looking at, there's some new rules, there's some new options for the narrator, some ideas for the narrator to utilize. There is a full-length campaign as well. I'm not going to really get into the details of it, so I'm going to avoid spoilers. But we do see right off the bat we're getting the major characters. Talking about the major characters that are involved in this. You know, I got to be honest. Usually when I'm running an adventure, a published adventure, I prefer to have my characters' stats and that kind of on the pages where they're first encountered or where you're mainly going to run into them, as opposed to having an example where a lot of times you'll see stuff where it's like, oh, hey, and then this character and that character and this character and that character, and they're all like at the back of the book. So you're kind of like flipping back and forth constantly. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to a lot of Chaosium game books and stuff like that, where that's how they would do it. But I always felt that was that just made life easier for me as a game master. Okay, so going through the adventure here. Personally, I find the campaign to be it'll be short. It's not real long. I guess a narrator could kind of stretch it out a little bit more. Once again, John Carter of Mars is kind of scene-based, like many modern role-playing games are. I know some folks feel that that's kind of being railroaded. Yeah, in some ways, but that's kind of how a lot of modern role-playing games are. I did want to point out in the adventure, the core book, there's kind of like basically, okay, here's what happens if this takes place, and here's what happens if this takes place, which you don't see a whole lot of anymore. It's just kind of like, well, you know, your players, they all have the appearance of actually having free will, but they really don't. So going through this now, once again, this kind of hit or miss on the artwork. I mean, it's kind of meh. But at least, hey, we got artwork, so that's cool. Otherwise, as far as I like the layout, there are some typos that I ran across in both books, but nothing which you're going to be sitting there like, oh my gosh, how did they let that slide through? Or I have actually seen some books where they use the wrong word. So, for an example, like faint and faint. And they're spelling faint the wrong way. I've seen that where it's like the entire book And they keep using the word too, and you're like, oh, for crying out loud. You don't mean when you like pass out. You're not talking about fainting. You're talking about a feint. Like, oh, we're attacking here. No, we're really attacking here. So we've got quite a few pages devoted to the adventure. And it is broken up into parts. I would say if you game with your group games together, say on a weekly basis for 4 more hours, this is probably going to take a good 6-7 sessions. It would be my guess. And then we get into the skirmish rules, which I've got to be honest, and I would take a guess that the fine folks over at Modiphius Entertainment probably won't be too keen on me saying this, but I get it. The minute they made miniatures for the game, the miniatures look really cool. The Star Trek Adventures minis look really cool. I just had a news piece about the 2 new box sets that are coming out. I don't necessarily want my gaming book, my page count being taken up by skirmish miniature rules. If you want to have the miniature rules out there, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I think that's cool. I like miniatures. I like playing miniatures. I like painting miniatures. I wish I could do it now that I don't have time, but I used to really enjoy painting miniatures. But if I'm buying a role-playing game product, and Modiphius Entertainment has done this with their Star Trek Adventures supplements as well. For the different divisions, they've included the skirmish rules, and it's like, okay, number one, you don't need to put them in every flippin' release. So, and I get it, you want to sell the miniatures and stuff, but it's a little disappointing that a good I don't want to say majority, but there has been a good chunk of the page count to the campaign book devoted to the skirmish rules and skirmish scenarios. So, there we go. All of this stuff is skirmish. So and then you get a glossary for the skirmish rules. But like I said, the minis look really, really sweet. So I get it. Modiphius Entertainment wants to sell miniatures. That's cool. That's fine. Like I said, I just don't feel that skirmish rules, miniatures rules should be included in a role-playing game book. Because we went from, where's our page number here? 74. So it's 100 and, was it 124? No, it's 118. Now, I guess if we count like every page, right, it's 124. So it's 118. So from page 74 to 116, actually we can say 117 because that's just artwork devoted to the skirmish game scenario. All that's devoted to skirmish rules. And if you have absolutely no interest whatsoever in playing John Carter of Mars as a miniatures game, that's just content you paid for that you're not going to use. So, disappointed with that. But the campaign itself I thought was pretty good. The campaign was pretty interesting. Like I said, it's not going to be super, super long. We're not talking about like 100-page mega dungeon for an old school role-playing game that's pretty much going to occupy the rest of your friends' lives if you try to play the whole thing. But that is Phantoms of Mars. That's the campaign guide. And this is the core book for John Carter of Mars, Adventures on the Dying World of Barsoom. I know, I always say Conan, Adventures in an Age Undreamed Of. I'm just going to say John Carter of Mars. So, what do I think of both of these books as the slipcase collector's edition? So, if I put them both together, pretty cool. I like the slipcase. Pretty nice. Thankfully, it does go on your does go on your bookshelf the way you would expect a book to go. But the quality is top notch. I pointed out before that it seems like these books that are role playing game books that are printed in Europe usually kind of blow the doors off of some of the stuff that we see here in the US as far as just the paper quality, just the care that's devoted to the game. So I'm a big fan of, say for an example, like Modiphius Entertainment, because they do the printing for Free League Publishing. Ulysses, well, North America, but obviously enough, those books are printed in Europe for Ulysses Spiel. So I definitely think the quality of the books is top notch. Very, very nicely done. Artwork, a lot of it's really good. Some of it is sort of meh, and there are a couple ones that I'm just like. But overall, I like the artwork. I think the artwork is pretty nicely done. Like I said, there's only a few typos. As I pointed out, the 2D20 system itself, which like I always say, I'm not all that keen on systems and mechanics and things like that. I'm more about, is this drawing me in? Is this type of gameplay? Is this type of adventure drawing my interest in? Like, do I want to run this? Would I want to play in this? Do I really care what dice are being used and things like that? No, not normally, unless it's like takes you 55 die rolls to figure out what one swing of an axe does. Yeah, then I have beef. But as I pointed out, this seems to be a much simpler 2D20 than I've seen for Star Trek or for Conan. And I do think it's a little easier for first timers to get into. Will mention people out there who play like 5th edition or Pathfinder or many other role playing games. It will take a little bit of time to kind of come to grips with the math for the 2D20, especially if you are a game master and figuring out your difficulty target numbers, keeping in mind that you've got 2 dice that are being rolled. So sometimes more than 2 dice. But yeah, so the system's fine. I think the core book is really, really nicely done. I think it's got plenty of information for those of you who really don't even care about the 2D20 system, that you could cannibalize tons and tons of stuff from the core book to utilize with any system you want. Because the core book is, there's not like 100 pages devoted to just the core mechanics of the game or how to play the game. The actual game rules take up about 15 pages, 20 pages total of the core book. So even if you're not interested in the 2D20 system, which I think is pretty decent, I think it's a pretty good system. I've seen some really broken stuff in my day, and it doesn't come out like that. But imagination fuel, yeah, Kabuki Kid, you're right. Or I've said this time and time again: any game master worth their salt owns all these different books from all these different systems, and we just steal stuff from one and another and plug it into our own things. So yes, imagination fuel. I think the core book is really, really nicely done. I think it's really good value in a PDF. Now I'd have to take a look at the PDF, see if it's in this landscape kind of oddball thing. But I do think it's definitely worth a purchase. On the flip side, the Phantoms of Mars campaign book, like I said, I like the adventures fine. Okay, the campaign is good. It's not, massive nair Lothotep. It's not something you're going to be like, oh my gosh, wow. It's very open to interpretation by the narrator, which is fine. I have no problem with that. There are people out there who do need to have everything spelled out for them as far as when they're running a game, if they're running a published adventure. There might be some gaps that need to be filled that they're kind of not qualified or not interested in doing. Plus, I also have to point out that, I don't know, The skirmish rules are fine. That's cool. I would probably say, yeah, the skirmish rules are really cool. You should pick them up if they were sold separately, but they're not. They're part of this campaign book. I think that drives the actual score down on the campaign book. So if I were going to give, well, I will give a score to the core book on a scale of 1 to 10. I give the core book a very, very solid 8.9. If you're super into John Carter of Mars, you might want to toss a few little decimals on that and push that past the 9 mark. As far as the actual campaign book itself, not all that excited with that. I give that actually a 6.8 out of 10. Like I said, like the adventure. On the flip side of it, I think the skirmish rules being included in the campaign book is a misstep for Modiphius Entertainment. Now, all together as a collector's slipcase for $98.99, I'm going to kind of average things out and just say it's an 8 out of 10. So I can recommend it. I can definitely recommend it. And what I would maybe consider recommending, if you're on the fence, for one, if you're not familiar with the 2D20 system at all, if you're not really familiar with John Carter of Mars, maybe you saw the Disney movie and that's really all you know, but you're kind of interested, be sure to go to DriveThruRPG, download the free quick start rules, because there are quick start rules. It's got an adventure, kind of gives you a feel for the whole Barsumian experience. So Kabuki Kid says, indeed, I have books for systems I never played just to snag ideas from. Yeah, and you know what? Even if you're not snagging ideas, you're having fun reading books. And I guarantee anybody out there who's picked up a few different systems, there are some real dogs that you've gotten and you're like, how did I spend money on this? What was wrong? What was I thinking? This is horrible. This is hot garbage. All right, so that's the show. No, I'm kidding. I'm a joking. Yes, as I mentioned, I'm going to get, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give away 2 copies of the core game PDF to people watching live right now. And I will give 1 copy away for anyone who puts a comment in the comments of this video. Just something to do with the video. Okay? I mean, you don't have to tell me a story or anything like that. Just toss a comment into the comment section for this video, and I will announce the winner on Monday. But let's jump back to the other camera here. So let's see, who do we have? Flaming Huron says that's insane. What's insane, Flaming? That people would buy game books that they never run? Yeah, well. So first off, give about a minute. Who's still in chat that's interested in getting a copy of John Carter of Mars in PDF? So I know Kabuki Kid is. I know Flaming Huron is. Dan from No Enemies here probably moved on already, because I know he only catches the show for a little bit. So do we only have Kabuki Kid and Flaming Huron in chat right now? All right, gonna give a few more seconds, because I was gonna roll some dice, but if I only have 2 people hanging out in chat, Kabuki Kid says they have the PDF already. Yeah, you won that. No, did you win? I know Kabuki Kid usually wins stuff. Kabuki Kid usually wins stuff. You know what? I can't remember the person's nickname. They were here a lot. They would hang out for the show a lot. And they were the one who was always throwing out the yeah, I'm not counting you, Kabuki Kid, don't worry. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was gonna say I could have thought that you won it when I did the unboxing in the first look, when I did the page through. But gosh, I can't remember their name. But they would always throw out the little bub stuff, like Bubzilla or whatever. I have not seen them show up. They haven't been back to the show since I went on my little vacation for a week, which was actually only really 3 days. You got shows on 2 days that I pre-recorded. So anyway, all right. So it's Flaming Huron then. All right, Flaming Huron, do me a favor. Shoot me an email to that email address you see right there. I will send you a link for you to download the core book for John Carter of Mars. So I guess that leaves me with 2 copies that I can give away for people who comment. So, see, so you had to watch the whole show to know. Just can't just skip through and take a peek at certain things. I know, there was just so much useless junk before I got to my review. So anyway, all right. As I mentioned on tomorrow's show, I will be unboxing and taking a first look at Starfinder's Beginner Box from Paizo Inc. Like I said, I'm interested in checking it out. I did review the core rulebook, which was actually this is okay. So I'll wrap up the show in just a minute, but folks out there know I'm honest. Yeah, I mean, I tell you like it is, right? So this is actually the first item. Oh, actually, I take that back. This is the second item I have ever received for review from Paizo in almost 9 years. So kind of cool to actually have them jumping on board, because the funny thing is they've got a new PR person, and the weird thing is the other PR person I had met umpteen times and talked with her about all different stuff, because she didn't only rep Paizo, she did rep some other companies too, and it was weird. It was impossible. You couldn't get anything as far as a review copy, and now they got a new person, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, love your stuff, man. What can we send you?" They wanted to start sending all the stuff that's coming out now for Pathfinder and stuff, and I was like, "No, that's kind of silly. I mean, you've got the new edition coming out. Why don't I experience the second edition brand spanking new, kind of coming to it completely out of the blue?" So Flaming Huron says, "Be interested, if nothing else, to see it. Core book is certainly interesting. And glad you're getting stuff from Paizo." Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well, I think what we're seeing is that there aren't a lot of people who share actual physical role-playing game books, releases, things like that. You don't see a ton of that. So I think some of these companies are actually saying, "Hey, there's it's this live show." They've known about the gaming gang for years, but now they're saying, "Hey, oh, it's like a live show, and people are kind of talking about our stuff, and hey." So kind of cool. That's why we're going to start seeing some of the Art Dream Publishing stuff as well. So that is it for tonight's show. As I like to always point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, by all means, please visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. But now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. It's mostly because people don't buy as many physical copies as days gone by. That's true, Flaming Huron, but people still like to see what the PDF looks like. They want to see what the book looks like, even if they're buying it in PDF. But you also have to keep in mind, too, that there are some companies that you can't get the PDFs for their releases. There are no legal PDFs for 5th edition Wizards of the Coast stuff. There are no legal PDFs for Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars role-playing game. I'm not saying there's not PDFs that are out there floating around. I'm just saying they are not legal copies. So I understand, yes, more people are buying PDFs, which I love PDFs as well, but people do still want to see, what does this look like? Even if I'm getting a PDF, what does it look like? How what's the presentation? What does the artwork look like? stuff like that. So anyway, all right. So I will be back tomorrow, which is Friday. So enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. Everybody who's in chat, everybody watching live, thank you so much for chiming in and hanging out with me once again. And of course, if you're watching this after the fact, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.